Welcome everybody to today's vendor spotlight. We have Dr. Stavrakos, Chief Medical Officer from New Life. Welcome, Dr. Stavrakos.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So, Doc, I know that, obviously you're the Chief Medical Officer, but you probably started somewhere beginning your career. So can you just walk us through maybe a little bit of your journey, kind of what you started with and how you got to New Life and all the exciting things. So I'm sure there's probably little stories in there.
I'd say there are many of them were happy accidents, but come to realize they're no accidents. It's just, to me, it's God, or if you're going to call it the universe, getting you where you need to be. So my background in medicine was I went into medical school, didn't know what I wanted to do. And I decided in a field called PM&R, which is physical medicine rehabilitation. And it's a pretty versatile field. It deals with any problem that leads to a disability. So some people do stroke and some people do brain injury and amputation. And I knew early on I wanted to do more outpatient and more musculoskeletal sports. So I was lucky enough to do a sports medicine fellowship. And ultimately, while I loved it, I wasn't very satisfied with the answers I was getting in terms of, well, what do you do for chronic injuries? And it was physical therapy could work in some cases, and medications just kind of basically mask the symptoms. And then it was generally, well, change your sport, change your activity. And when it's, steroid shots to calm it down, but ultimately do harm. And then it was, when it's bad enough, we'll do surgery. And early on, I learned a little about some regenerative medicine. Prolotherapy has been around a very long time, almost 100 years. Started doing prolotherapy. And by chance, we ended up moving. I left my job in Northwest Indiana, and we ended up in the Carolinas, where I am right now. And there seemed to be more of a demand there. And I, by chance, met up with a group of people who were doing platelet-rich plasma. I delved into that. And I had heard about the benefits of birth tissue products. And I think back then it was mostly amniotic tissue and amniotic fluid. And by chance, the owner of the company I was at said, there's this company called New Life you should maybe talk to. And I got to meet their CEO then and their owner, Vicki Mansavage, and pretty much immediately impressed with just how brilliant the lady was and just how forward thinking she was. Vicki's been around in this business since the word stem cell was coined. She goes back to the beginning. Really impressed with her work efficacy. So fast forward to a couple years ago when I started my own clinic, and I moved about 90 minutes away to the South Charlotte area. And I contacted New Life and said, you guys used to do this thing called Centers of Excellence, where you refer people, you get calls from all over the country. And I have a clinic in the Charlotte area if you're interested in sending people. And they said, we'd love to talk to you, sure. And she called me back and they said, how would you like to be our Chief Medical Officer? Because we know you love this stuff. We know you have a passion for it. We know this, you're kind of a holistic doctor. You are a functional medicine guy, and it's the surgery is a last resort. So I was kind of honored and floored. And I've had the honor of having that title for the last couple of years. And it's been vocationally one of the greatest things I've ever been able to do in my life. It's been amazing.
Awesome. So you've been in practice, you're going through your journey, you cross paths with somebody, and the next thing you know, you're working for New Life. Tell us a little bit about New Life and what is it that maybe separates you guys from maybe other companies that are out there right now in the market?
Sure. We'll definitely talk more about this in the webinar. Scott probably has more details than I do, but basically, New Life is a multi-state tissue bank. They take in and process birth tissue products, which can include amniotic fluid, cellular and acellular Wharton's jelly from the umbilical cord, placental tissue, etc. And I was lucky enough to get on with them when I didn't know one company from the other. One thing I realized about them was that they knew what they were doing, because I think, like I said, Vicki Mansavage has been there from the get-go. 35 years ago, she knew about the protocols the FDA was writing when the word stem cell was a new thing. So she's been there from the ground up. She's learned along the way. They have a commitment to safety that is above board. And as a physician, you're always worried about meaning well and doing something wrong. You get a bad batch of something, because no matter what happens as a physician, it's your fault. And also, your job is to help people, not give them an infection. Their safety efficacy was so above board that when I started using products many years ago, I used them on myself, and then it was my late father and my mom and then my sister, and never had an issue. So they don't cut corners. And I think that's huge. They are very transparent with what they do, so transparent that they have a wonderful relationship with the FDA, which is key. Vicky, I think, to my knowledge, can call the head of the FDA. She has his number and says, what's new, what's changing, and they'll call and say, hey, we're coming for, an inspection. Such, please come on in. So they've never had any issues there. Bottom line is we really have a great team of people, including our chief science officer, who's one of the most brilliant people I've ever met. In terms of what he can do with these products, his fund of knowledge. I'm a dirt general. I'm the guy who's on the ground, injecting people and doing IVs and whatnot. And I understand the philosophy and the science behind it. He's the guy who actually puts it together. So we really have an excellent team that works together with a company that has long roots from the beginning, going back, and really a commitment to safety and efficacy.
Nice. I love that. Multiple people coming together, making sure that we have the highest quality, making sure that we have, support for people. So I love that. You did mention something. You're like, I'm the guy working and doing certain things with it, right? So tell me a little bit about maybe like a success story, or walk us through maybe somebody that you worked with where you really started to kind of see what this product could actually do for, your patients.
Sure. Well, that's an easy one, because one of the early success stories I had was my own dad. So my dad had a bad left knee. He had cracked his kneecap, his patella, twice in his life, once as a child and once in the Army. And Dad grew up in Europe during World War II, and in a little village in the mountains. So like a lot of people over there, you didn't complain. If you could walk, you could work. If you broke your leg, they might give you a half a day off, and then you splinted it and worked again. So he was not a complainer. And things that I think would put a lot of the people in a lot of pain and moaning about it all day, he just endured. But so when he complained about something, I knew it was significant. And I tried other things for his knee. I tried hyaluronic acid. It didn't work. We tried prolotherapy. It helped a little. I tried PRP. It helped a bit. But whenever I'd come home to visit them in Chicago, he'd say, do you have anything to try for my knee? And I looked at his MRI, his x-ray. It's really kind of ugly. I said, I don't know how you're standing. So I did get it on film. I remember we treated him. And this was back when the concentration of the product was not what it was today. Like the 1 milliliter, I think, of stem cells or the live cells was about 1 million cells. Now it's about 5 million. So I did that with a little PRP. And I told him it's going to take a couple weeks. So as chance would have it, I think we were visiting family back up north again. And I was so used to him asking me this question. I said, so when are we going to come back to treat your knee? And he said, what knee? I said, your left knee, the one that's bothering you. He goes, it is? I said, yeah, he has a short memory with this stuff. He said, my knee's fine. It's not bothering me at all. And it kind of blew my mind that years of him, ever since professionally started doing this, he was asking me, it never really bothered him to that point. It was really simple. Mm-hmm.
Wow, I love that. Okay, and then you said what was it that you actually did for your father? What were the combination of products that you used?
Back then, I used the live cell, the cellular Wharton's jelly, which are the live cells you find, of course, in the umbilical cord, and platelet-rich plasma. So, we drawing his blood, putting it in a centrifuge, separating out the solid components, and concentrating the platelets, because platelets have a healing factor. They're a nice matrix and a nice addition to that. So it was a very simple procedure of taking those, injecting his knee, and then injecting around the knee to the areas that were unstable. But the irony was that I'd been that thorough before. It's my dad, for one thing. And I believe in doing a thorough treatment plan. So we'd done that with different products, and the success was limited at best. And after that time, and I always tell people it may take more than one treatment. He was already in his late 70s, early 80s at that point. I said, you may have to do this again. And I don't think he ever complained about it again.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's the power of the type of products that you guys have. So that's a great success story, especially it being your father. That's even better, right? If you could help your parent, that's even better. Now, I do have a question, because there's a lot of changes in the industry. There's a lot of things going on. So I just want to see, like, how do you stay ahead of like industry trends or maybe anything changes that are going out in the market? How do you guys stay ahead of the game?
Well, two ways. I think from a standpoint of what are the rules and regulations standpoint, I think that's where it helps to know what the FDA is doing. And to my knowledge, and Scott can speak to you more on this, but my understanding is they're pretty straightforward about that. There years ago, a couple years ago, there was the issue where there was a big shift and it panicked a lot of people, where these products were reclassified. They were considered procedures, and then they were reclassified as drugs. Procedures don't go under the heading of the NDA, but drugs do. And so basically, if you wanted to continue to do these procedures, you had to do independent research, to ask for. And so we did that. And then I think Vicky had just asked the FDA, look, are you coming after people? We need to know, are we? And he said, no, we want to be sure that people are doing this the right way. We want to sure, because unfortunately, I think you find in this industry, there are bad actors because there's money made. And there are people who will put billboards up saying, cure your ALS with stem cells. And number one, don't ever make a claim like that unless you are 100% sure you can back it up. I never, as a physician, stem cell, no stem cell, any procedure, claim that I will fix you because I don't know. It's not up to me. Number two, a lot of people are using things like amniotic fluid, saying, well, there's a couple stem cells in there, maybe, we think, but they're calling it stem cells. So they wanted to weed those out so people weren't misled. And a while later, they did something I've never heard a government agency ever say. They said, we were wrong. We don't know what these are. We don't know how to classify them, but we know they're here to stay. So the fact that the people in power, and who run things at New Life, have the pulse of what's going on, that helps a great deal. And thus far, I to my knowledge, I've never known, because I think there's a lot of worry about people. Well, if I do these things, are people in black Cadillac Escalades and guys in dark suits and sunglasses going to knock on our door? And I said, the government knows what you had for lunch yesterday. Trust me, I've been doing this for years. They are very concerned about you being very honest and straightforward about what you're giving people and make sure it's good conformed consent. But no, these are allowed to be used in this manner as long as the patient understands what you're doing it for. So the other part of it is, I think we have a really good team. We have people who understand the product, who sell it. We have people like Scott who explain how they work to physicians and PAs and NPs when we do our training seminars in Florida, or when he and I do private training. I've got, close to over a decade, close to getting on a decade and a half experience using these products. I've seen them. And we have our chief science officer, who literally is the guy who can take them out of the umbilical cord, grows them, makes them, and has insight into the future use for these things, like hair cells, for hair follicles, and hopefully down the line, things like how to cure Parkinson's disease. So you have a really good dream team of people working together.
Wow, that's some exciting stuff there. That's definitely something that's new, and we definitely, once that comes down the pipe, we'd love to have you back and share some of the new stuff that you guys are doing. So that's great. Well, I think we have a webinar that we're going to be doing. And so I just wanted to see what kind of things can we expect on the webinar, maybe some stuff that we might be covering, so that way we can go ahead and let everybody know here.
I think we're going to cover a couple things. So Scott and I will be there. So step one is the science of it. What's the mechanism of action? And we'll both chime in on that. And we're going to cover largely two products. One of them will be the trade name is Restore Plus, which is a cellular Wharton's jelly, the live cells which you get from the tissue of the umbilical cord, which looks like Jello, hence cellular Wharton's jelly. The other are exosomes, which are vesicles that are derived off of those same cells. And what's the same about them? What's the difference in them? And what's the application of them? What's the efficacy? Well, it's going to vary by joint and by area, but I talk a little about the literature, about what we've seen using these things, not only for helping repair, but also the thing we use is immunomodulation. How do they basically reset the immune system? How do they calm the body down? So people with some systemic diseases, like rheumatoid arthritis or irritable bowel and the like, are noticing amazing returns, at times. We talk about how do you prioritize your patient safety. So what are the safety, what are the clinical protocols? What are the quarantine times? How do we know that, what's the serology or the lab work done on expected mothers who are going to donate these birth tissue products? So you basically make it as foolproof as possible. And the last part is really, I talk a little about, clean technique, aseptic tech, good hygiene practices, things you can do in your practice to minimize problems. Because we have a saying, stem cells don't cause infection. Bad techniques or bad luck causes infection. But in the world we live in, unfortunately, if some company, and this has happened a couple years ago, where I think one company had a batch of bacteria, E. coli, got into some of their stem cells, and a couple of people got infected. And of course, what did the headlines read? Stem cells cause infection. So people unfortunately associate stem cells with bad, and it wasn't the stem cells. It could have been, apple juice It could have been steroids. It could have been hyaluronic acid for knees. But how do you avoid that? And for those who want to, and like who've done this before, I can talk a little about just a little technique about, well, here's some ideas for joints, or here's some ideas for cosmetic or aesthetic procedures, if you want to, or some intravenous things. So there are little tricks of the trade we just learned over time on how they might best work for you.
Awesome. So for any of you out there that are currently, using regenerative medicine in your practice, this is a great opportunity for you to come here live with us on March 19th, which is going to be a Wednesday. We're going to be there 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's 1 Eastern. It'll be about an hour. You'll have the chief medical officer. You'll also have Scott from New Life, which is going to be able to help you guys understand some of these processes that Doc had just mentioned. We want to invite you guys all to be there. And Dr. Stavrakos, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate you sharing, just some of your success story and some of your journey. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Deanna. And I look forward to seeing you guys all on the 19th. It'll be fun.
Perfect. Thank you.